These are 5 editing mistakes that I see all the time as a pet photography teacher who has been teaching hundreds of pet photographers, both professional and hobbyist, for the past 3 years. And throughout those 3 years, I've been doing critiques where I have been giving people feedback on their photos. And this is what I see usually when people are just getting started. These are the top 5 editing mistakes when it comes to editing your pet photos. So if you do any of these, it might be time to have a look and maybe fix some things up. Let's get straight into it. So the number 1 and first tip is blue dogs. And I see this a lot, particularly with black dogs who aren't actually black anymore, they have turned blue. Now, it's really normal for in overcast days or in shaded light, like in the forest, that your dog, especially your black dog, is going to have some blue color casts where the reflection of the sky is bouncing off their coat, and then there are some blue tones. However, what I normally see is that either people are editing too cool for some reason, we tend to tend toward the side of cool, or they're just not correcting their white balance because they assume that what the camera is showing them or creating for them is correct. Now, I have my camera on auto white balance. That means that it's going to be making the decisions about how warm or how cool the photo is based on the information in front of it. That, however, doesn't mean that it is completely accurate. I want to show you 2 photos that I've taken just the other day in the woods with some beautiful golden backlight and why your camera doesn't always have it 100% correct. Now, I get criticized a lot that my photos are too warm, but what I'm always trying to do is to get the dog's coat to the correct color. In the case of Journey, that means his coat should be kind of a bricky orange red. In the case of Loki, he should be more or less black and white. There are rarely times in life where I look at Loki in the forest and I think, wow, you look really blue today. It's literally never happened. Journey, sometimes on a weird day with weird storm clouds or he's wet, will look like a kind of a magenta kind of color, but I've never also seen him purple. So here's a photo of Journey in this glorious backlight, and if you have a look at him, I hope you can see that there is a lot of blue color going on in a dog that should be pretty much red. His nose looks like it's grayish, purpley black almost, and you can see in the whites of his chest there is definitely a lot of blue here. If I put the saturation and vibrance up, you can see there's a lot of blue there as well. So it's really important that I would correct the white balance to the point where he looks like the dog that I know he is, which is going to be something more like that. The same is happening with Loki in the same location. Now, he wasn't really making very majestic expressions, but you kind of get the idea. Again, you can see how blue he is there. So I would want to fix up the vibrance and, the temperature and the tint. I could also use the eyedropper tool, but I'll do another video on that on another day. But you can see now he is looking much more black and white. You can see his coat color. There is some stuff going on here, but that is something else completely. In general, he is a much more neutral color. On the subject of photos taken with sun rays, there is something really heartwarming to us about photos with that golden sunny glow in the background, or seeing a little bit of lens flare from where the sun was shining in the lens, or just seeing the sun in the photo in general makes us feel all kind of warm and fuzzy. The problem is that, and I am guilty of this myself when I was first learning, is that we then want that effect in every single photo, even when it doesn't necessarily make sense. I see a lot of fake suns added by some kind of radial gradient or radial mask or overlay, where there's suddenly the sun shining through the literal ground because the photo wasn't taken from low enough. Or there's sometimes 2 suns because you can see that the sunshine is shining on the right side of the dog, and then there is a fake sun added on the left side of the photo. This is a pretty decent example of one of my old attempts of adding that kind of fake sunny hazy look, but if you look in the background, it was literally the ground of a hill. There's no way the sun could actually be shining there. Same as this one, this should not be happening. There is no sun there. There's no sun shining through the fur. There is literally a hill with heather on it, and the sun can't shine through there like that. Same as this one here. It ends up being a distracting haze rather than actually something that is adding anything meaningful to your image. If the sun was literally in the corner of an image, by all means, you can enhance that light, you can make it soft, you can make it hazy, whatever makes sense for that image. But most of the time, and I'm not saying all of the time, I'm saying most of the time, when I see especially new pet photographers adding some kind of fake sun haze in some top corner of their photo, it doesn't generally work because it doesn't generally make sense. If you're going to add it, make sure it makes sense, and then, do what you like. The next issue that I see quite often in my critiques is that the mood of the photo doesn't match the editing, or the mood of the location doesn't match the dog and the expression and the editing, and you'll always feel like something is missing when you have this mood mismatch. If you have a very serious dog in the deep dark woods and you're trying to edit it light and bright and airy like this one, sure, it's a pretty picture, I'm gonna say, and there's nothing wrong with this. This was a very quick edit. It's definitely not my style, and in my opinion, this kind of lightness and brightness and soft warm tones don't necessarily match Journey's very stalky, serious, head-lowered, wolf-like expression with the ferns. For me, this all tends towards a much deeper, darker, mysterious green kind of feeling. By the same token, I have seen some photos where you have a super happy, fluffy puppy or a Pomeranian or something in this kind of twisted nightmare tree, and it's edited all dark and moody, but the expression on this fluffy cuteness dog's face doesn't ask for dark and moody, so it doesn't work. There's a real fundamental clash in moods and story there, and they will always feel like there's something off about that photo in that case. So always try and make sure all the pieces of your photo and your editing all match up to be a cohesive story, feeling, or mood. The next issue I see a lot is that my members' dogs get lost in the dark, and this is partly probably because I do have a more dark, moody, and deep and rich editing style. So of course my members wanted to try and emulate that, but it is still really important to me that my subjects are standing out in the photo and that they aren't getting lost in a sea of dark. Now, I just opened up a photo here from a recent photo shoot because I think it's a good example of what I would be looking for at the moment. He is standing out, but I think he could stand out more. And if we look at the histogram here, we actually have quite a section at the right-hand side that is completely empty, which means I'm not using the full spectrum of light at this point, and I'm missing out on a chance to make this photo really shine. If I just pull up the exposure a little bit, move that histogram on a little bit more, you're going to be able to see how much more Olaf stands out in this photo and how much more bright and vibrant it is, and how much more that matches this mood as well. This is not a dark and somber and moody photo. This needs a bit of a lift and a bit of light. So check your histogram and don't let your dogs get lost in the dark. They need to stand out. They need to be the star of the show. This is going to depend a bit on where you're editing, how dark or light it is, your monitor calibration, and all of that stuff, but the histogram doesn't lie, so definitely check that out as your last editing step. If you're enjoying these tips, by the way, and you want to get critique like this on your photos, you want to learn more about my editing style, my editing tips, my editing tools and techniques and lessons, make sure you check out my Learning Journey membership. It has hundreds of lessons and a lot of lessons about editing, tutorials, going through my full editing process, dissecting how I edited some of my favorite photos and the steps and layers that went into them. So if you enjoy this kind of editing content, definitely check out my membership. But otherwise, there are plenty of other resources here on my channel. There's more coming. Make sure you keep supporting me. Subscribe, comment below so that I keep showing up to make videos. I know you guys love the editing content, so I am going to try and bring you a little bit more, but I do need some ideas. So let me know your questions, what you'd like to see, what you'd like to learn, what you're being challenged with, and I will do my best to bring it to you. Let's get on to our very last tip, I think. My last tip is about eyes, and I know a lot of you guys want an editing eye video. It is on the way. I have it made. It's coming. But one thing that I see very often, especially if the eyes of the subject aren't perfectly in focus, is people going a little bit overboard to try and overcompensate for that bit of softness, or for the fact that maybe their lens isn't quite as sharp as it could be, and therefore ending up with really over sharpened eyes. So as you can see here, his eyes are pretty moderate, but what I often see in the critiques when somebody's really trying to make those eyes stand out is a few things. One is that they get way too bright and they lose the contrast of the pupil and the eyes end up glowing. So that is already a big problem. And sometimes doing that can bring in more noise, which isn't necessarily ideal. And if you lose the pupil, the eye actually looks weird and a bit unhealthy, but I'll talk more about that in the editing eye video. The other thing that I see quite often is people going a bit over the top with sharpening like this. And what you end up with is an eye that's all kind of pixely and grainy and weirdly over sharpened, and the rest of the face that's normal. And it does draw attention to the eyes, but probably not in the way that you'd like, as in it's kind of so overdone that it's weird and it stands out, but not in a good way. So definitely don't be going over the top with over sharpening the eyes or over editing the eyes or giving your dog eyes that glow completely, which is what I used to do with Loki. And he does have very naturally amber orange eyes. They are very bright, but even I have eased off on Loki's eyes, despite what my critics on the internet and social media might say. His eyes are very naturally bright, but that means that I actually probably do less with his eyes than I would with some other dogs. So again, the eye editing video is on the way, but in the meantime, make sure that you're very careful about how much you do with the eyes. Don't go over the top, don't over brighten them, and don't over sharpen them. And those are the top 5 editing mistakes that I see all the time. If you want more editing mistakes, I'm pretty sure I can think of more, so do let me know below. I hope you found this interesting. Please let me know which tip you're going to be trying out or using in your workflow. I'd love to hear which one was maybe a bit of an aha moment for you. And yeah, let me know what other things you'd like to see videos on, and I will try my best to keep making them for you.